Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of eCommerce Mastery. I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have the honor of speaking with Mr. Chris Wyatt. Now, Chris, I'm so excited to chat with you today because you have personally been responsible for facilitating over 100 million with an M dollars in sales online. You've worked with enormous companies like LadyBoss, ProCPR, SillyGeorge, and other humongous e-commerce businesses. Dude, you're the man. You've been analyzing, auditing hundreds of millions of dollars of ad spend. You've spent $55,000 in a day. That's awesome. Thank you for being so awesome, and welcome to the show.
Awesome. It's a pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Hell yeah, me too. So, man, I'm so excited to dive into your methodology today. And I believe you're getting these trademarked. So this is your intellectual property here that you are, kind enough to talk a little bit about. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Tao method, which I'm so excited to dive into. But before we get into that, I would love to hear your story, how you got from where you were to where you are here. How did you get to this place today?
That's a great question. So it probably all started, I started in college. 2007, I was approached to sell some products like probably everybody and their mother has at some point in their life at this point, with someone who said, "Hey, are you looking to make some extra money?" And when you're talking to a college student who was, come on, a college student's like, "Yeah, as long as it's legal, I'm good." And so I got into it, and ultimately the company was at the time called Quickstar, which was a branch of Amway. And very quickly did I learn that, hey, why why am I going to try to talk to everybody and their mother about this product? If it'd probably be a little bit easier if I could get a product in front of people who are actually looking for it. So that was my aha moment. It's like, why can't I just use the internet to, build a site or leverage, WordPress or some type of blog to get people e-commerce store. At the time, Shopify wasn't a thing. Or if it was a thing, I didn't know about it. I didn't know about Shopify too many years later. We were still using, Dreamweaver and stuff back then, man. It was a different time. And so that's how it started. I wanted to start tinkering with websites and figuring out ways that I could promote other products and services. And so I started getting into affiliate marketing and blogging and building websites and WordPress and outsourcing. I had a team in the Philippines that I was managing in 2008, 2009, started kind of outsourcing more. So that's how it started, man. It just started very the first 2 or 3 years, I'd call them my college years, really. Ironically enough, I was actually in college, but that's really what they were. There was a lot of trial and error. There was like, do I like WordPress? Do I like SEO? Do I like graphic design? What do I really want to do with this? And I tinkered on a lot of it to be able to kind of obviously build the sites. And do I outsource? How do you outsource? How do you hire people the right way? So I learned a lot. I cut my teeth a lot, and I used any funds that I could to kind of help try to get the business going at the time. So that's how it started, man. And then fast forward, a few years into that, 2010. So I'm celebrating my 10th year working with clients in 2010, in summer 2010, had my first real official client, doing some SEO work in the insurance space. And I leveraged that case study into taking on more clients, and I was getting really good results as far as ranking in the top 10, top 5, top 3. And at that time, 2010 was really big SEO. Every SEO was really the service at the time. PPC was, kind of there, but even Google ads at the time or AdWords, not Google ads, AdWords is what it was called then, was still, I would say, still kind of infancy stages as well. And so progressed from there. And then fast forward a few years later, I transitioned from kind of the SEO, website building, project management, kind of, in-house agency to, I had some freelancing gigs. I was moonlighting a lot. 2011, 2010, 2011, I was by myself. Occasionally would have a job here or there for a few years. Because, success is, if I can give anybody any, I guess, feedback, is success is not a straight line, right? Like, man, I'd have some clients and have enough to be at full for it to be full time. And then, I wouldn't. And then I'd look for a job. And then at the same time, I'd be looking for clients. And then I'd get the job offer and, I'd moonlight, $1,500 a month for that. And then I'd have a $40,000, $50,000 a year job. So I was still, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. Wasn't like hurting, I guess, per se. I was building my career and building case studies and building up results and building my network, my professional network. And, but I wanted to get out of that, man. I wanted to get into something that it's much easier to sell clicks than it is to sell, content that eventually, hopefully someday in 6 months from now, you'll rank and you'll start getting some traffic. And then there's just some terms that people are just in obscure niches, right? Like, could you imagine, what's that pot that you like back in the infomercial days? You poured water on it and it grew, Miracle Grow like pot thing that like little pet pots, like just obscure things.
The chia pets?
Chia pets, yes.
Dude, I remember those.
Like you got an obscure pot like a chia pet. Could you ever imagine like somebody's not going to search for chia pet without first seeing the infomercial, right? Like some people have products like fidget spinners. Could you imagine somebody trying to rank for the word fidget spinner? Nobody's searching for that. Yeah, you'll rank number one, but nobody's searching for that. So like there's this level in there where you have to create demand, right? Like you almost have to create a market, and we call it demand generation in the paid space. And we use interruption, the buzzword interruption marketing. So what does those things mean? It means that there's not really an initial demand for that product or service, but you have to create the intrigue, the interest, right? Like Purple Mattress is another more recent example, or poopery, right? Like, like you spray it in the toilet, it doesn't smell like poop, right? Like, or what's the other one? The one where the unicorn is like pooping out rainbow stuff. Anyways, there's just really cool ads out there, man, that people like. Dollar Shave Club is another one, right? That's demand generation. Like, what's sexy about buying, shaving stuff? Like, there's nothing. They created an awesome concept around getting it automated, so you didn't have to go to the store to buy this very mundane thing that you didn't really want to buy anyway, right? And for $6 a month, you can get one automatically. Okay, cool, sign me up, right? Like, so you had to create demand for those things or interest around them. And so I got into the kind of the advertising space as a primary focus in 2013, 2014, after 3 years or 4 years in SEO, and then kind of phased out SEO going into 2016, 2017. I've done some basic SEO for stuff since then, but I mean, 99.99999% of my time has been focused on paid advertising, because I can put an ad together, make some amazing creative, do some product stills, and promote a product and get results. And so that's the story. That's how it all started. That's how I got to a place to where along the way I've worked with some awesome brands. Like you mentioned, I was the VP of advertising for LadyBoss for about a year. Before that, I had grown my agency to a healthy mid 6 figures a year in revenue. Not quite at the 7-figure a year range, but it was pretty much just me with a handful of contractors. So had a very, I guess, successful business from the standpoint of, the revenues weren't there, but I had my time. What do we get in business for, right? We want time freedom, we want flexibility. We want to be able to do what we want when we want, how we want, right? And I had that, right? I had reached that hall of fame, right? I had reached that climax in my career of like, hey, listen, like, what's the next step? And so after LadyBoss now, I've really been focusing on like some video creative stuff and growing an agency and consulting services back out. I've had a very good year through all things COVID related and grown back out. I've grown about 200% this year, which is great. Very excited about that. And yeah, I've dabbled in drop shipping myself. I've had a 70,000 SKU home and kitchen goods store that I ran for a while. I had some success. At the time, I was running a lot of my e-commerce sites on Magento. So a lot of your users probably are more in the Shopify world. Shopify, Commerce, BigCommerce were really big before Shopify was. OS Commerce was also big for a little while. There's some other smaller players that were around for e-commerce functionality. A lot of them like Volusion. Oh, Volusion was the worst. For SEO, oh, it was a nightmare. But a lot of people use that as well. And so, yeah, man, I've worked in a lot of different tech. I've worked in a lot of different verticals. I've worked very obscure products. I've worked with very mainstream products. And I've helped, some companies grow and scale pretty significantly over a, 12 to 24 month period of time. But what I would say, I say all that to say this, but anyone listening right now, you're on your journey, you're trying to figure things out, like take a step back and just realize it's going to take some time. Like you're going to suck. Like I heard at a Funnel Hacking Live event, his last name's Wyatt.
Was it Ryan?
No, Wyatt. Oh my goodness. Wake Up Warrior. Garrett J. White said, he says, you're going to suck and then you're going to suck some more and then you're going to suck a little less and you'll suck a little bit less and then you'll suck a little bit less than sucking and then you'll eventually suck so less that you'll actually be good. Right. And so when it's like, well, that's true. Like you're going to be bad at what you do when you start out. Like you're going to just not be good at it. And you're going to be really bad at, sourcing products from AliExpress and figuring out which ones are going to work. You're going to think that this oil canvassing or oil reproduction site is going to be awesome. You ship straight from China and you'll be able to do this thing. I'll raise my hand on that. It's going to be amazing. And you spend a year developing out the site with 60,000 SKUs of small, medium-sized sizes, and you replicate somebody else's on the 5,000 fastest growing list and think that you're just going to be able to do it yourself. Without factoring in that when that business started, they've been in the business for 14 years, right? And you're trying to replicate their success in one. And it's like it's not comparable. Some things just take time, but keep working. Eventually you're going to find that one, two, or three products that you're really able to build as your flagship product. And then what you do is you start adding in some ancillary products that really make you. That's where the people who are big, like LadyBoss's main product, it's the shake, right? It's the lean shake. It's a supplement. What is it though? It's a consumable. It's something that people are going to need over and over and over and over again. So that's why these subscription boxes are so hot, right? Because it's a consumable, especially food subscriptions or anything that's consumable. That's why Dollar Shave Club is great. You can get on a subscription and you get it every month because you're going to shave, right? Like you've got to, it's like soap. Like, okay, well, like I'm going to have
hopefully you're using soap.
Hopefully I take that once a week, shower.
Every Saturday, whether I need it or not.
Whether you need it or not, man, whether you need it or not. So, yeah, just you find a flag. You'll eventually find a flagship. It's probably going to take. The question is do you have the patience to throw up enough ads, to throw up enough product variations and different images, and you test 30 to 50 products. You're going to test probably 30 to 50, 60 products before you find that one where you're like, oh wow, I can actually generate $30,000 to $50,000 a month in revenue with this. It's like, yeah, you can. But then you got to figure out supply chain, and then you're going to stop drop shipping, and then you're going to start buying. There's so many. I don't mean to overwhelm people, but like there's a process here, right? Like you get to a place to where like you realize, okay, drop shipping isn't something I want to continue to do. I don't want people to like wait 3 weeks to get the product. So then you're going to take all your profits and you're going to buy in bulk, and then you're going to put it in a warehouse, and then you're not going to have cash for a little while because you just paid all of it just to get it done in bulk. And then you're going to hope that it gets there in bulk without being damaged. And then what might happen is that it gets damaged, and then you have to go and like figure out a way to max out a credit card or get another shipment. And I'm not telling you stuff that I haven't heard happen, because this stuff happens. But I want to encourage people to say that, and share a little bit about the Tao method and about like how the process of like going through and trying to figure out how to get stuff to work, because I've recently seen somebody share with me I actually can't share what their product is. I didn't sign an NDA, but I'm not going to share what their product is because it took them a while to figure it out. But I've seen really obscure stuff like HVAC Direct was a company that I worked. It's not obscure, but who would ever think to sell heating and air conditioning units online, right? Because they're these big bulky things. You think that you got to call a local service provider. They're going to come out and they're going to sell you one, and whether or not they can fix the ones you have, or you're probably going to buy one, a replacement from them. Well, HVAC Direct is their hook and angle is wholesale prices direct. So we will give you basically the price that we would sell to the guy who's ultimately going to try to upsell you direct, and we'll cover the cost of freight, which is it's not regular shipping, it's for very heavy items. And we'll cover that cost for you, and their margin's not very big once they factor that in, but they pick it up in volume. And so we went from spending, I think 50, 60, 70,000 a month to doubling that budget over like a 9-month, 12-month period of time, increasing sales. At one point they were getting like a 20x return on all of their ad spend. Now it was collective, right? Like what people don't realize is usually that paid ads eventually bleed into other things. So the paid ads generated phone calls, and those phone calls led to higher bulk orders. And then, the people that went to the site also opted in for, email newsletter. So when a promotion goes out, how did that person get on the list? What came from paid advertising? Well, the SEO, the organic traffic increased. Well, the organic traffic increased because more people were searching for brand related terms. And so the organic was really brand terms that were coming to the site, and more people were coming direct to the site now because HVAC Direct is a very easy domain to remember, right? So heating, ventilation, air conditioning, right? Direct.com, very easy. And so there's this big lift. And so when we looked at the overall lift across the board, we went from 6, 7, 8x to a 20x when the last time that I remember doing a report. So you think about it, you're spending 100, do the math, spending 100, 125, you do a 20x, how much revenue are they generating, right? It's pretty substantial, right? To go from being able to spend $1 and make 7 back to now spending $1 and getting a good old $20 back, right? A $20 bill.
That's huge.
But it takes time, right? Like you got to figure out. So I'm going to hop into the Tao method. So how were we able to do that? It's Tao method. So what is it? What is Tao? So Tao obviously, is kind of that philosopher, right? So maybe you heard the book Words of Tao or Taoism or Taoism. I say Tao because it's easier for me to pronounce, in the way that I want people to remember it's with the T. But it's the definition is in Chinese philosophy, and I'm going to read this. It says it's the absolute principle underlying the universe, or combining itself with principles of yin and yang, and signifying the way or code of behavior that is in harmony with the natural order. So my Tao is in relation to the natural order of how you should do advertising online. So the T stands for tracking. If you don't know, you don't have any tracking in place, you don't know what's going to work, right? So you could have all the feelings that you want in the world around how something's working or how something is performing, but if you don't have tracking in place, Google Analytics or some other tracking third-party platform that's tracking besides your Google Pixel or your Facebook Pixel, that's helping you create a report so you can see, okay, this is what the advertising campaigns are doing, this is how they're doing, this is how they're performing. So that's tracking. I'm not going to go too depth into that because it's pretty straightforward what that is, right? And really how to do it. I mean, there's so many videos on YouTube on like, okay, setting up Google Analytics, grabbing the analytics code, dropping it in the header of the website, and then setting up, goals within Google Analytics to track performance, making sure that you have, e-commerce tracking enabled on Google Analytics so that you can pull through revenue and stuff like that when those orders are coming through. Very, very simple to do. That's base tracking. That's like everyone has to have that. Now there's a more advanced tracking, but again, I think you mentioned a lot of these people that are probably listening to this right now are more beginner to intermediate. So the advanced stuff is exciting because it's where you want to get to. You want to get to a place where you use a platform like Hyros, Hyros. And Hyros is a tracking that allows you to see when somebody came in from an ad, let's say they opted in for an email, and then 6 months later, they bought a $5,000 order on your site. Well, wouldn't that be awesome to know that wow, all these people, it takes average person who opts in to an opt-in 6 months later, the average person is spending, $800 with me over that 6 month period of time. Well, you could think that you're not, because you're not making any money for 4 or 5 months, that's actually a really bad strategy. But then you see through a tracking mechanism like Hyros, or maybe it's not 6 months, maybe it's 7 to 21 days. Well, the problem with traditional tracking platforms like Facebook or Google Analytics is that, let's say you're on your phone, right? So you're on your cell phone, and then you're connected to the Wi-Fi at Starbucks. And then you go home and you get on your desktop computer, right? I know a lot of people don't have desktops. I use a desktop because I prefer it, especially at home, because it's just easier for me. But then I also have a laptop. So if I go sit on my couch, I'll go get on my laptop. And each time I click on the same ad or the same company, right? And then eventually I'm on my iPad or on some type of tablet device, and I finally convert, right? And let's say that's over 3 or 4 days, right? And I'm on different devices, because we all tend to be on different devices over a course of time. How is that ad platform, how is Facebook going to know that it was the original ad that I clicked on that resulted in me converting? It gives no attribution to that. It only gives attribution to the last device with the last click. It's called last click attribution. And so there's a problem with that, because it doesn't give you the full kind of conversion path. Google Analytics does an okay job at giving you like kind of a channel and the path that you can see and get, see like how certain traffic sources are interacting, but it doesn't let you really see like that way, particularly for paid traffic. And so Hyros does that. It can give you the full conversion data, because it's also tracking and pulling in your revenue based off of where you're doing your payment processor. And so it's much, much more advanced. It helps you with lifetime value, or maybe even not lifetime value, but what I call instead of long-term or lifetime value, it's short-term value. You need to know, okay, how much money am I making from this person in 30 and 90 days? Because at that, if I can make a lot of money in 30 and 90 days, but I lose a little bit of money in the first 30 days, and then around between 31 and 90, I make 5 times back what I would normally have lost. If I spend $1, spend $2 and I only make 1, well, that's not very exciting. Who wants to do that? But then you end up finding out that in the second and third month, that person is now spending an additional $5 with you. So you spent 2 to make 6. That's a 3x. You can scale that, but you have to know that. You have to understand those mechanisms and understand what drives that later behavior. And it lets you do 2 things. 1, you know it, so you know what you can spend your ad dollars on. And then 2, it gives you that SDV, that short-term value or initial value, so that you can make the decision on how aggressively you can scale your ads, right? Because if you don't know that, you just won't know. You're like, oh, well, these sales are coming in from, you are like, I don't really know where the sales are coming in. We have these ads running and we spent $20,000. We made 60. It's like, well, how much of that $60,000 is actually coming directly from those ads? And then how long is it taking those ads to turn into that $60,000? Like, I don't know. Like, oh, so painful. Like, it's going to be impossible for me to be able to make these decisions until we get the tracking in place. So I really hit home tracking, because without tracking, the next 2 things are not going to matter. They become completely, they're obsolete. They're almost not necessary in a scaling environment.
So before,
any questions? Yes.
Yeah. Before you get to that super advanced level where you are able to work with a third-party platform and you have a serious attribution, and it seems like you're integrating in a lot of different places. If you're just relying on a Facebook ads platform or the Google ads platform or any other platform that's probably even less sophisticated than those 2 are, like, what's our next best option? Like, okay, we could, but it wouldn't make sense to go to this level yet, but what can we do to make the best of the situation that we're in right now?
I would say that there's two things. One is you need to get the pixels in place. So there's a Facebook pixel and there's a Google pixel. So if you're running ads on those platforms, you need to have those pixels set up. So those pixels will at least be able to give you some level of attribution. So they will be able to track how you're performing with your ads. And you need to set up the goals and tell them, hey, this is when somebody reaches this page or when this event happens, this person has purchased, and then you can pass a value back into that platform. So that at its very basic level, and then my brain's like trying to spin off all these more advanced stuff, but that is it at its very basic level. I would say the next tier after that is it's in conjunction with that is you want to get Google Analytics set up. It's probably the most fundamental tracking solution that's out there in the marketplace. It works really well and much better on platforms like Shopify. But if you're using platforms like a ClickFunnels or any type of like basically like a funnel builder, it becomes a little bit trickier because Google Analytics really isn't really designed for like the traditional or the newer idea of a sales funnel. But I would use as a base on everything is Google Analytics. So use your pixels and use your Google Analytics, and that will help you at the very, very least. So make sure you have that installed and make sure you have your goals set up in Google Analytics, and that'll help you a lot.
At what point do you know when it's time to graduate to those next levels?
I'd say when you start profiting in the range of 20 to 30,000 a month, you get in the range where you're profiting 500 to 1,500 a day. You need to go and invest in a software like Hyros. That, just think about it. If you're doing 500 to 1,500 a day, you're spending 1 to 3 days worth of profit to be able to better attribute where your sales are coming from, so that you can pull the lever and spend more money on the ads or ad that is really driving you sales. And to be able to know that, because you could have one ad that by itself is generating a 7 times return. So for every $1 you're spending, you're getting $7 back. You need to be able to know that, versus ones that are doing like for every $1 you're getting $2 back. And then blended, it's like, oh, I'm getting, I'm spending 20 and I'm making, like I said, spending 20, making 60. That's great. But what you end up finding out is that you actually spent $3,000, and of that 60, 40,000 of it came from $3,000. It's like, wow, like I spent 17 grand and really reduced, like brought me back like nothing. I actually lost money, especially when you factor in, not only did I get less revenue, but now I actually had to, there's cost of goods involved with that as well. So I'm actually losing even more.
And the opportunity cost of not having tripled down into
absolutely.
Big one.
The lost opportunity cost is massive, right? Because you just didn't know what you know. Right. And so, so that would be the core basis that I would use.
Right on. Okay. So we covered the T. Let's move on to the A.
All right. Architecture. So A stands for architecture. You got to make sure there's several pieces that need to be, built in the right way. So the reason I use the word architecture, I used to use a different word, that was also an A, but it just makes more sense for it to be architecture, because the architecture is around how you go about building out your campaigns. So there's almost a whole nother methodology underneath architecture. I could just talk strictly about architecture, probably for like a 3-day seminar just on architecture, because architecture really is. It depends on which platform that you're on. So my architecture for Google is a little bit different than my architecture for Facebook ads. But at its core, it's understanding, first you got to know who your audience, another A, you got to know who your audience is, right? So what's the makeup? What's the avatar? Another A. Who's the audience and avatar? What is their age? What do they look like? What do they buy? Where do they hang out? What things are they into, right? That's so important when it comes, especially on Facebook, when it comes to targeting or YouTube ads, knowing where your audience hangs out at. Let me give you an example. So I was working with this client. She basically teaches moms how to build a chart system for their kids. And so, of course, on Facebook, we're going to target parents, right? Particularly women. And it's very, very successful targeting. It's very, very simple to identify, okay, she's targeting women or parents or women who have kids. Easy, right? Most women who are 42 probably already have kids. So I probably, from a targeting perspective, I could probably just target women who are 42, right? And we did some of that targeting too. Didn't even do the parenting. But then outside of that, it's like, where else are these women in buyer like research mode? And what other things are they interested in that they're buying? That if we just that other people are targeting them for other things, but we're actually can put a chart system in front of them. So we started I started advertising in front of clothing brands. So Gap, Lane Bryant, some other women. There was like a list of about 20 women's brands, clothing brands that I advertised in front of because her audience shopped there. So I was like, well, if your audience shops there and they're women and they're in this age range, right? I don't need to put the other layer of parenting. I want to put this in front of them. And it worked really, really well. Another one was we targeted minivans. So if a woman's without putting the parenting target, we just like a woman who's 42 years old who's driving a Honda Odyssey is likely, right? Is likely to probably have kids, right? Or, a Chevy Expedition, an Expedition or Chevy Tahoe or, some type of big van, right? Probably are the people that this would work for. And so
that probably shortcuts because there's not a mom van, characteristic there.
There isn't.
You could click.
So I had to do some research on other like vehicles that could like Honda Pilots. And so I got a little bit more educated around like what vehicles that would fit that demographic. But that's definitely worked really, really well. And obviously went after some other kind of more affordable, like family cars, like, other Hondas, went after the Camry. So outside the box targeting, like where do your people hang out? It's important to know what they drive, where do they work, where do they live, what do they believe, right? Because you can tie in your messaging to them, particularly on Facebook. Now, if you're doing Google and you're doing Google search, your architecture over there is a little different, right? And by architecture, I want to also drive home the point of is awareness. Little side note. So when I went to college, the reason why I try to use these alliterations when I teach is I went to school to potentially, at the time, be a pastor or some type of ministry related type thing. And so for me, it was like, we're taught how to write a sermon. A lot of the sermon notes were built around alliteration and leveraging alliteration because it's easier to remember. That's why, when I use architecture, I talk about audiences, which is an A, ads, which is an A. And we'll get into ad architecture here in a second because that's a whole other sub-architecture. And using these alliterations helps people, kind of remember and kind of draw back attribution, architecture, etc. So I'm going to bring that back in now. So we're using this architecture and understanding where their buyer awareness is, where are they at in the buying cycle? So are they unaware of their problem? Are they problem aware? They know, oh, I got back pain, right? Like, well, if you've got a cream, that could potentially help with their back pain, or you got a back brace, right? Or the next level would be they are solution aware. They know that a back brace is actually a solution for them, but your back brace is FDA approved and patented, and you've got the special, XYZ structure that is going to help alleviate back pain because of pressure points and blah, 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 right? So how you speak to those people, right? It's like, oh, have you noticed that your hips hurt? Well, it's probably because of your back. Well, you got to educate them. So that's like, they don't quite know that they have a back problem yet because it hasn't, assimilated or transferred to that part of their body yet. And now I'm not a medical person. I'm not sure if that's even a thing, but my point is that you're trying to educate them of your solution, right? And you're really presenting it that, and you need to speak to them at their different levels of awareness and then offer them next. When people are like, oh, my ads suck. It's like, well, let me see your offer. Let me see your messaging. Let me see how you're speaking to your people. And it's like, well, tell me about your people first. And they're like, well, any guy 40 to 60 years old, like, okay, where does he hang out, right? Does he use Bengay, right? Like keeping with the, like the whole back thing. Like, are they into Shaquille O'Neal, right? Because Shaquille's had some back pain things. Like, it's like what? Tell me about what they do, and you can't really pull it out of them. And it just tells me that they don't really know who they're serving. It's very generic. So when you're trying to pick out a product and drop shipping, It's like, it has to be a product or a service, like a product that solves a problem or is very catchy, right? Like it could be like one of those like I saw one was like you put the glove on and like it has like those like frilly like scrubber things on both sides. So like you can like wash dishes with like this like glove on. And it's really cool. Like it helps you scrub, and like nobody wants, nobody likes washing dishes. Nobody really, right? By hand. But if you give me this really cool thing that like makes it fun, yeah, I might be interested, right? For $8, $8.95 plus shipping, you can be yours, right? So if it's not catchy and gimmicky like the Chia Pet, to kind of tie that back in, it needs to be something that like you can easily describe to an audience and really build a picture and an avatar around, because that makes your creative, when I get into ads, it makes the ads a lot easier to make, because you know who you're talking to, you know who you're speaking to, and you know where you are speaking to. What moment are you speaking to them? Do they need it right now? It's different how you speak to that person. Do they kind of feel the pain, but somebody hasn't agitated that pain enough, either physical or emotional, whatever that pain is, enough to get them to take action? You can maybe do that in your copy, right? Maybe you can draw out that emotion in the copy. So that's very, very important. Audience avatar is very, very important. Now I'm going to get into ad architecture. So I look at I look at ads on Facebook in particular. I'm talking about Facebook, and I'm going to shift to Google, as a creative unit. And I look at it as the top copy, right, above the image or above the video, the creative being used, the creative asset. So is it a GIF? Is it a video? Is it an image? And then we look at the headline, and then the call to action button. So is it learn more, buy now, get offer, download? And there's a bunch of other ones, but those are probably the biggest four. Learn more is huge. Shop now is a big one. Download, get offer. And there's several other options in there that aren't used as much. But those four components are huge. And so how you leverage those components, headlines are massive. The creative that you use is very, very important. I like that when it comes to, I'm going to start top to bottom, right? So I talked about the copy that's above the image or the creative asset. You want to lead with a question, right? So let me give an example. Are you sick and tired of consistently having back pain?
Yes.
Perfect. Now you've identified your audience. Why is that question so important? Because you've identified who your audience is, right? Or are you a cat lover? Yes. He's like, well, I don't know about that. But the point is you would be targeting people who love cats, right? Or pages about people who love cats. So maybe your little thing is you're selling these little these cool little keychain things for cats. It's like, that's a cool idea. Well, maybe here's another one. Maybe you create a quiz that people are like, what kind of cat are you? People love quizzes. You can imagine if you give a cat lady a quiz about what kind of cat are you, she's going to be like, yeah, what kind of cat am I? Tell me, right? Am I a Siamese? Like, what kind of cat am I? Like, I want to know. And then what happens is at the end, when they get done with the quiz based on answers, like you just make up this silly little 5-6 question quiz, and then like make it fun. Check out quizzes at leadquizzes.com, a great resource. Makes quizzes super fun. There's an e-commerce brand that I know right now is doing this with jewelry and around like mythology and Greek goddesses and stuff like that. And sorry, I just had somebody ping me, and it just like through my thought process. So they lead in with like, what kind of goddess are you? And so at the end, when they get done with the quiz, it like leads them to the piece of jewelry that aligns with their answers and their results.
Brilliant.
Super brilliant, right? And on the front end, they don't make a lot of money on that, but they kill it on the retargeting, right? So like, again, architecture. So you get somebody here through a quiz, you're not going to make a lot of money. They're probably not going to purchase right away, but then you give them a 5 or 10% discount as a retargeting. Boom. They're like, well, shoot, you know what? You got me, right? Like, you got me. So the same thing with cats. It could be dogs. It could be, it could be art. It could be, things about sports, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It's like being creative, being really thinking outside the box around your creative and leading with a question is super, super important. So lead with a question, and then try to get into some pain. So like, are you a cat lover? Are you tired of, having, wouldn't you love to have some like really cool, things to be able to show your friends at your next little, cat get together? Yeah, I don't know what cat lovers do. I'm not a big, I have cats, but I'm not about that life like that. But the point is that you need to tie in that desire. So AIDA is a really big one. Attention, interest, desire, action is a format that kind of used old school thing. But attention, so get their attention with a question. Interest, okay, you've answered the question. Okay, here's your interest. I've shown you. Let me give you an example of my things. Like, are you tired of running Facebook ads that do not give you the ROI that you want? Yes. Okay, sweet. Well, after managing over $12 million over the last couple of years in Facebook ads, I've developed a methodology that really is systematic in helping you drive better results with your Facebook ads. Interest. Okay, cool. Awesome. Desire. Now, it's a very simple process. It's 1, 2, 3. It's easy for you to do. It doesn't matter if you're an expert or not. And there's a money back guarantee. Oh, desire. Cool. Action. All you gotta do is click this link, go to the next page. Here's the training. It's $37, but I give you a 3 times X guarantee, where if you, by implementing the strategies, once you've implemented, if you're not able to get better results with your Facebook ads than you were before, then I will not only refund you the money, but I would also give you 2 times back what you give, so for a 3X return. Boom. Action, desire, promise, guarantee, risk reversal, takeaway. Right? So there's a lot of things I just stacked in that. So you got to think like, how can you do that for other people? Free shipping, buy one, get one free. You got to be careful about that, leading with that as your main offer. So what happens is that devalues your brand. If you're creating this quick little, again, beginner, intermediate, if you're trying to create this quick little, what I call the cash grab dropship model, which is you find a product that's really hot, you get really successful with it, you make maybe a couple $100,000 in sales, you maybe make 20, 30% profit, which makes 20, 30, 40, $50,000. But you start to see that the product's starting to die, or your creative's starting to die because you probably got it from your supplier and you haven't invested the money. So that's another big thing. If you're a drop shipper, you got to go buy the product, get it shipped to your house, get it shipped to a professional, and get some new product photos, because everybody and their mama is probably using those same products from the suppliers that you are. And that's a problem. You need to get different backgrounds. You need to get different overlays. You need to take, walk around the product with your camera, right? So you have like a full view of the product. And then what you do is you send it off to the editor. The editor makes it all nice and frilly and fun. And it adds a top and bottom cinema bar that says, do you love cats? And the question mark and the thing. It says, well, then, click to purchase these really cool things at, 10% off, right? So, or take this quiz about what kind of cat you are, right? Or do you have back pain? Do you know what it is? No, you don't. Okay, well, take this quiz. Right? Or go check out this product. It's been, FDA approved, blah, 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 blah. Right? Not saying that people are going to have FDA approved products being drop shippers, but my point is you got to have that angle that creates legitimacy around your offer. And if you come out of the gate, and I had this problem with one of the brands, we were doing crazy numbers, $300,000, $400,000 a month in sales. One product, right? It had 2 or 3 different SKUs, it had 2 or 3 different designs, one product though, right? International, we were US, Canada, UK, Australia, some Europe, killing it. We got up to about $15,000 a day in ad spend. Problem is that literally our best ad was our Black Friday ad. And people are going to probably shoot me for this. And a lot of ad buyers are like, why'd you do that? Because it was our best ad and it was still working. We actually ran our Black Friday ad for 8 months after Black Friday.
If it works, it works, right?
If it works, it works. Now, again, when you're trying to build a brand, you don't want to do that. But we were trying to transition the brand. We were going through a rebrand anyways. It was kind of like, well, once we finally fully rebrand and actually make this a real brand now, instead of like, there's kind of levels, right? There's the drop ship, and then there's like the real business where you're actually fulfilling it and you got a fulfillment house. And then there's the brand. Like those are the 3 stages in my opinion. So it's drop ship, and then like fulfillment, you're doing your own fulfillment or outsource fulfillment here, wherever your country is that you're doing it from. And then, or wherever your biggest sales country is, which most likely US, and then building a brand. You're building all your assets are in your color schemes and everything. All your fonts are all congruent. There's no more of this using your suppliers, images and stuff like that. You're doing your own creative. So that's the ads. The ad has to pop. A really cool little tip, little tactic is your top and bottom cinema bars. So I don't know if you've seen them on Facebook where like they have like these really colorful bars at the top and bottom of a video that say like, stop the scroll, watch this video, right? And it catches your attention because if it's in a different color, like a blue or pink or red or yellow, it stands out on Facebook because Facebook's background is white. So if you're scrolling through and you see this like top and bottom video that has like these little cinema bars on them, cinema bars by definition, like when you go widescreen, those are those little black bars on the top and the bottom. You don't really notice, but now you're going to notice them. But you use those, I call them cinema bars when I give them to my editors, and we use those and it makes the videos pop in the feed and you get higher click-through rates, cheaper clicks, more visitors. There's lots of benefits to it. So I just went off a little tactic there, but you got to be fun with your creative. You got to get out of using supplier images, building a brand, really starting to leverage those. So that's the creative. Any questions about the creative and kind of the architecture of like an ad? And so I talked about the creative. Headlines. Headlines are super important. Use numbers in the headlines when you can. I'll give you an example. How to scale your business. It's very bland. Right? But if I say, here are the 9 steps to scale your business. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, you give me a number. You give me 9 steps. Okay, that's simple. I can wrap my head around 9 steps to grow scale my business. Now, what if I said the 9 steps to 2x your business over the next year? Okay, it's more descriptive. So now I know that it is this amount of steps that's going to help me grow my business by 2 times over the next basically 12 months. Wow, that's great. Okay, so now you've given, now that's not Facebook compliant. You can use that on YouTube. Can't use that or on your landing page on YouTube. You can't use that on Facebook. Facebook doesn't like time frames. You basically prove it. So how do you get around that? You use it as more of a case study. So you say how I was able to scale my business by 2 times using 3 simple steps. How I was able to 2x my business in 1 year using 3 simple steps. Boom, done. So play with numbers. That's why discounts work really well in the headlines. So 5%, 10%, 20% off. Use something like limited quantities. There's only 400, instead of saying there's only 500 quantities available or 500 of these available, say something like, use an exact number. There's only 417 left, or there's only 123 left. Why? Because prime numbers like that, they just tend to stick a little bit harder. If it's a round number, it doesn't really feel real. It feels gimmicky. But if I gave you a specific amount, you pay attention to that a little bit more. So that's the headline. And then I tend to like the learn more button as a call to action. Sometimes the shop now works really, really well in e-commerce. You have to test them. Why is it important? Because sometimes you might get it might cost you more money to get visitors to your site with a shop now because it's a higher intent versus learn more, it's more commitment. But those sometimes that click on the shop now will convert at a higher rate. So yeah, you're paying a little bit more for those people to get to your site, but they convert at a higher rate, so it makes sense. So play around with that. So that's the architecture of just the ad. But overall, you need to know your audience, you need to know who you're targeting, where you're targeting, what time of year you're messaging. Obviously, Black Friday specials versus, in the middle of, May when there's nothing going on, or in the middle of the summer when there's not a whole lot going on. You might have to be more creative with types of promos and lead-ins and stuff like that. So there's that. Any questions about architecture?
Not as much of a question, more of a friendly reminder to you listening and watching that Chris here just gave you a blueprint and is continuing to give us blueprints here to create incredible advertising. So I would really highly encourage you to go back and listen and take notes if you haven't, and implement these things. Because if you do, it will, I could safely say it very well could change your life forever. Because you only have to be right once in business. You only have to hit it once. And these things that Chris is gifting you, sharing years and years and decades of knowledge, just implement it. You have the blueprint now. Just do it, and you can see the results. So that's what I wanted to say as we move from the A into the O.
So optimization. So optimization is probably, I know I made the A sound pretty in depth, but once you understand, once you do the hard work of knowing who your audience is, the architecture of the ad and stuff like that become a lot easier because you know what to say to that person based on where they are and their kind of their awareness. But optimization becomes a lot simpler when you have good tracking, right? And you have a good architecture, because those are like, tracking is like, look at it like a house. It's like the foundation. The architecture to me is more like the framing of the house. And now optimization is like the interior design. It's making it pretty. It's up leveling it. It's getting the new stove and the stainless steel appliances and the granite or marble floors. Like, it's making it look all nice and pretty and really helping that house really feel like a home. So optimization. So the number one thing that I would say that people overlook is their landing page. They blame the ad. Oh, the ad's not converting. The ad's not converting. The ad's not converting. I'm like, well, let's look at it, right? And we look at it, and they're getting like a 3% click-through rate. Well, is that good? Well, on Facebook, you want that to be at least 1%. On Google, I would say a 2% click-through rate is kind of Google search. Somebody looking for your product or service is kind of the baseline, like initial number that you want to kind of have. And then obviously above that's really, above that's where you start to separate yourself from competitors. But people overlook their landing page, man. It loads too slow. There's too many images. Their call to action, the call to action button. So like the add to cart or the buy now button is, you have to scroll for it. You have to like look for it. Guys, you move that stuff up above the fold. It's called ATF, above the fold. So if you ever see the acronym in kind of the internet marketing space, when they say ATF, it's not alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. It stands for above the fold. So you got to get stuff above the fold, right? The headline on the landing page, the headline is the most important thing. It's like 80% of the value of a landing page is the headline. So the product name, when you name it in e-commerce, is so important. So how you name your product and what you name it, especially when you're doing drop shipping, you got to differentiate your products. Again, other people are probably out there selling the same thing. So how do you make it stand out? So that's one. And then two, the call to action button above the fold. The trust factor on the landing page is huge. So do you have a chat functionality on the page, right? That can work for you and against you, meaning like if there's too much going on the landing page, and let's say the chat functionality is overlaying and it's like bigger than the actual call to action button, or it's sitting on top of, on like Shopify, when you're on your mobile, like if you've got a chat button, sometimes it sits over your buy now or your add to cart button. I would say that there's more value to the add to cart button being clear than it is for you to have chat. But when it comes to trust, you should have like the Visa, MasterCard, American Express, like PayPal logos above the fold as well, because there's a subconscious trust that's being built with people that you take that type of payment, especially online. And it's kind of gimmicky. It feels like it's kind of like a China product. A lot of people will try to use PayPal, and that'll drastically increase your conversions if you also allow for PayPal processing. So that's another tip on your landing pages. Allow for PayPal. If you don't have PayPal on your Shopify store, you're missing out on 20 to 30% of sales. And it's just trust. Like, it just increases conversion rate when people know that you're willing to use a verifiable third party to process payments. So name a product, getting the buy button or the call to action add to cart button above the fold, getting some type of trust factor above, site secure, 100% site secure, VeriSign with the payment processing logos above the fold. And then when they start to scroll, you can get into product description and the product demo videos and stuff like that. Product images are huge, so they can scroll across. So make sure that you have, I don't know if it's native to be able to have some of those things, or sometimes you might need an app on Shopify or some other platform to like be able to more clearly swipe, or if you can actually upload the demo video to the product page. So like that's the first thing. So the demo video is there as the main thing, not the image. But keeping that as clean as you can above the fold in that space, and try to get as many of those elements as you possibly can in that above the fold, because it's going to be crucial. then you just got to test, right? Like which product images work better, and do some A/B testing on that. And another thing is when somebody finally buys, they have these apps that allow you to kind of upsell on the back end, right? So you can, it's kind of like a sales funnel. So when somebody buys, you can upsell them into, your back pain cream. It might be knee pain cream, or an arm sleeve, right? Like the copper tone, infomercial where they have like, oh, I feel great, like by putting just this black sleeve on my elbow, I feel like I'm an NFL football player again. It's like, really, come on. But you can cross sell them into other products. Once they've purchased the initial product, I would highly recommend looking into some apps that allow you to upsell them once you've already got their credit card information and you've got the initial order process, because they're already in buyer mode. They just bought. When's the best time to sell something to somebody? When they've already purchased something else from you. It's the best time. And so test that out. Optimization, same thing with the ads. It's like testing out different headlines, testing out different images and different creative. You got to just find the combinations. In Facebook, it's really cool because they have these things called dynamic ads, where you can load in like 3 or 4 variations of headlines or body, kind of the copy above the image or the creative asset. You can throw in different images and it automatically creates different ads for you. So if you do 4 times 4 times 4, so you have 4 different pieces of copy, 4 different pieces of creative, and 4 different headlines, you do the math on 4 times 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is, that's what, 64 variations. So 64 variations of ads that you automatically create by leveraging that, which is really awesome. And then from there, Facebook allows you to see kind of which of those is actually doing the best as far as click-through rate. And then you can pull that out and create its own ad around those best units that are working well. So that works around Google. You just got to, it's very simple. Like on Google ads, man, it's so much more restricting. Like you've got just a handful of characters, man. You think 170 characters on Twitter is difficult, or I think they've eliminated that, 140, 170, whatever it used to be. It's like pretty much now you can write a whole book apparently. But I don't tweet very much, so I wouldn't know. But I understand the concept of being limited by characters. And for years, I mean, it's like 25, 30 characters. And it's like, come on, like I can't do anything. On YouTube, it's like 15 characters for headline. Like, what's 15 characters? 10 characters? Call to action? Like I can't. What do you say? Like check the site out, right? Like or click here. Like that's all you can put. Like literally, there's no characters. So there's only so much testing that you can do on like YouTube ads. But if you're just starting out, YouTube ads should be like the farthest thing from your mind. You should try to being able to figure out Facebook ads and trying to figure out your own brand terms. And you should be bidding on your own website name. You should be bidding on the products that you're advertising. So if it is, some cat toy or back pain cream or some CBD product. I don't really know a whole lot about CBD from a standpoint. There's certain niches that I know there's a lot more education for me to like make sure I'm compliant. Compliance is obviously a big thing too. Making sure you're not making a lot of claims at certain things. Like if you have a back pain cream, you can't come out and say, this will eliminate your back pain. It's like, you can't say that on Facebook. They will ban you in a heartbeat, right? Just don't be shady about what you do, right? Like don't make claims that are unnecessary. Don't make claims that if you think that it's like, I'm not sure if they're going to like it, they probably won't. So be very careful when you're writing those ads from a compliance standpoint. But from a Google standpoint, trying to talk about optimization, you're just going to try out different headlines. Same thing there, different descriptions. You got way more characters in the descriptions, so you can get a little bit more kind of descriptive about like what the product is and what why they should be interested. So I'm a visual person, so I'm so used to like being able to present and show examples. It's like tough for me not to be like, hey, let me share my screen real quick. Let me show you an example. But any questions about the optimization? I try to keep that a little bit simpler. It's like you just want to test out different headlines. You just want to write different copy. You want to try different images or videos. I'm going to go back to like what I said before, which is like if you're drop shipping products, you need to get drop shipped to yourself and create your own images and your own assets, because that's what's going to differentiate you from Joe Smo. Like I was just looking at one the other day in the beauty niche, and I was just like, they were trying to sell it on, a marketplace, a Shopify marketplace, and they had some sales, and then they didn't do anything with it for like 7 months. And then in the last 2 months, they like had a big, massive peak in sales, and they're trying to sell it for 100 grand. It's like, dude, like, no way. Like, no way. You don't have a business. Like, there's no, like, you have one product. And when I search Google Images for this one product, there's like 8 other sites just on the front page. I don't even scroll, right? Because they're all using the same product images, right? And so it's like, how in the world, like, if you've got a product that is selling really, really well with a drop shipper, and you're actually even starting to like maybe buy, a couple hundred pieces at once, or quantities of a couple hundred, so you can ship to a fulfillment house, and you need to talk to them about branding those products yourself. Because if you don't start building a brand, like, man, you're just in it for the cash grab. There's nothing wrong with that, but as long as you're honest with yourself about what you're doing, right? You're like, hey, I just want to make some quick cash. I want to travel the world. I want to be the digital nomad for a couple of years. If you're in that, you're in 20s and you don't have any, you're not married, no kids type thing, like, I get it, right? Cash grab, make some money. Just don't be shady about it. But if you're really trying to build a sustainable business long term, you need to start controlling what images that you're putting out there, and really start to connect with these suppliers in a way that where it's like, hey, listen, like, we got to put some different labels on these bottles, right? Or this beauty brand, this lotion, I need to have a different label. And I've had somebody mock this up. Can you use this print instead of that? And that way it becomes your own kind of private label product. That's kind of like, I guess that's that'll probably kind of be the middle level, is either fulfillment house of the existing product that's there, or some type of private label. So it's drop ship, private label to a fulfillment house, build a brand, right? That's kind of the sequence I see people go in. I mean, you can say maybe what you've seen, but that's the ascension that I see, have seen over the years. But that's all I have, man, is if in summary, tracking. You got to make sure you have something so you can see where your advertising dollars, where your sales are coming from. You need to have the right architecture, understanding. By architecture, I mean, like, you understand your avatar, who are you speaking to, when are you speaking to them, because what you say to them is going to be different. And then you're going to optimize that messaging and those ads and that creative to try to fine tune, and your landing page, fine tune, that all the way through, so that it makes sense. And there's a Tao, and there's a principle, right? The principle is there's a yin and yang, right? There's a yin and yang to the process. There's a little bit of give and take, right? And understanding that throughout the testing process of the architecture and optimization is so important. So that's the Tao method. That's how I apply that. I apply that to both, Google as a platform. I apply that to both Facebook as a platform. A lot of people forget about Bing and Yahoo, but essentially what I do on Google, I do the same thing on Bing. And yeah, that's the process that I follow to drive results.
Chris, that was awesome. And I'm so grateful that you shared this with us, because I know this is your intellectual property. You've been building this methodology for years. So I'm extremely grateful that you were willing to share this with everybody here. So I just want to say thank you very, very much for your time, and thank you for everything that you've shared.
Awesome. If there's anything else I can do in the future, just let me know.
Right on, man. And I know you prepared a special thing for the people. So I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about it and how to go about and get it.
Sure. So if you really want to start trying to have a basic core understanding of how to set up some strategies and some tactics on Facebook, I own paidadstraining.com. It's a simple training on how to use Facebook ads to maximize profits and also scale. And you need to be able to scale your ads. So that's it. paidadstraining.com. I'll walk you through the process. It's 3 mini courses in there. They're separate in that funnel. You can buy all 3. When you buy them, you can actually schedule a call with me, and I'll help make sure that as you've gone through the course, answer any questions that you have, and make sure they're implemented for you. So we'll have a 15-20 minute call where I will basically make sure that you get the help that you need. Make sure that it's implemented the right way. And I do that as just a way to kind of give back, because it's like, listen, courses and stuff out there, they're only as good as the ability to be able to implement them. And so there's two things I learned on those calls is one, how can I become a better teacher and be able to simplify this? Because, that's probably not always my easiest thing to do, is simplify a lot of this nuance that I've learned and the dynamics of it. And so I want to learn from you about how I can help serve better. And then two, make sure again that you have it implemented, and that if I didn't provide clarity, that at least we get it implemented on that call, and then I can go back and reshoot some videos to make sure that I answer any frequently kind of asked questions in the training. So go through or buy the course, buy the mini courses. I think the first one's $37, the second one's $47, and then my favorite one is $77. So I think that total was like $180 or something like that. You get basically the core methods that I've used just in the I've developed that system has been over the last, I'd say maybe last 16, 18 months. So, and then during that time I've managed, I don't know, man, probably close to $9 million just with that process. So you're getting that for $9 million of ad spend knowledge for $180. So that's what I have, and I look for hopefully some people can grab that and use that in their business to help scale their Shopify stores and their brands.
So if you're sitting there thinking, do I want to go? Do I not want to go? Let me put something in perspective here. Chris's hourly rate is way more than the cost of the courses, and the fact that
$995, $1,000 to sit with me for an hour.
Exactly. So if you basically get the cheat codes and the blueprint to do this, and you get to sit down with him where he looks at your stuff and helps you implement. That's a bargain. I mean, you really can't afford not to. First of all, you can't afford not to go back and listen to everything that was said in this episode and take notes. And then to amplify everything you've learned on the show, go there and get it. I mean, just think, one ad, one product that you hit a winner with, $20,000 to $30,000 a month in profit, it's worth $180 to have somebody look over your shoulder and help you implement after giving you all the strategies to get there. It's a no-brainer. So make sure, if you're on video, click the link in the description below. And if you are on audio podcast, then check it out in the show notes. Guaranteed you will not be disappointed. It will be awesome. So do it, take some action, make some sales, change your life. Chris, thank you so much, man. You rock. I so much appreciate you and your time. And to you listening and watching, I want to thank you. Y'all are the best. Make sure to implement. Go grab the course. Talk to Chris. Change your life. And I'll see you on the next episode. Take care now.